what I don't want to do is say, yeah, it's gonna be in December, and it's February. So what I'll do is I'll put it in the paper. And I usually shop around. I drop them off to all of the menu banks. And send, because I want designs designed for, they go a few years back. And the one in New York is set on the Zion's one that we have the 1.8%. So we'll get that, and then in December, if I can arrange for it, then we'll have the work for the
Submitted 621 form in their forms the other day
for the next year.
so I can see where we stand on that.
Yeah, and that's good to know, because it wasn't like next year. So basically, the idea is when, two come off, two go on. Just in that direction.
Oh, another thing to let you know, Joe's van, they're gonna be doing the install for the outfit stuff. So I call you up one day and say, hey, here's an invoice.
Well,
I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, what is hard is when you say, hey, I need it, we need to pick it up right now, and they want their money, just give me a few days.
Yeah, I would.
It's sometimes happens. All right.
This is a long meeting. I don't think so either. I think the agenda was pretty.
And part of it is, yeah.
Did you guys get some dinner? There's extra lunch dinners in here, if you want one.
Part of it is that you've got that going forward, so, there's, I'm not saying we just fully on board. Usually we have the audit, and all that stuff done. So we have the district taxes for the BOCES, and we tax for the racing. And so consequently, they're considered what are called conforming agents. It's as if we really don't.
I've noticed our relationship, I'm still trying to figure out how that works with the rec center, because I've kind of seen that we're pretty blind with them. They use some
Yeah.
of our property, we use
Yeah,
their
so there's a
property,
joint
we
use,
use our
there's a
center.
joint use between the rec center and us. In other words, we don't send them a bill when they use our property to do whatever, whether it's a basketball league at the middle school, or cross-country, sometimes they'll do cross-country. So,
Oh, yeah, I found out about that the other day, the snowmobile, the rumor on it.
yeah, so we have someone go. It used to be that we only did grooming at Aspen. So we don't send them a bill, and they don't send us a bill in whatever the case was. Okay. And so the joint use is plus, since we tax something we have, although I never see it like it all goes directly from the county to the, it's kind of funny. But their finances show how those aren't done. So the auditor should have to, okay, but they'll be ready to fix it. So, that's the good. What happens is Sherry orders sandwiches, whatever, and somebody can show.
Enough, how are you?
Good. Getting you the agenda okay, or I can, if you want to write your email down, I can send it to you as well.
Yeah, that would be ideal if you could send it directly to me.
Okay. You just want to write your name and your email address, and I'll just add it.
My handwriting is abysmal. If that's an issue, I can get yours and type it up if you can't read the writing.
Okay.
This thing. bit of it, I'm losing words. Yep.
Just leave it at, how's that?
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not know you. Well, yeah, I do.
I know you, but I
And
don't
hey,
know you.
Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm good.
Good. Your lunch was amazing.
So far,
So
can't
far.
complain.
Awesome. So that's good. So you guys are gonna show for us?
Oh, yeah.
That's what we're
Short presentation.
Short.
Yeah.
That sounds good. How's it going?
Doing good. Yes.
Great to see you.
She's an 8. Yep.
She's great.
Yeah, I was gonna say, remember her and Brady are in the same grade.
I think they're in the same kindergarten class.
Oh, she was Sheila?
Yeah.
So she was with Sheila. See, he was with.
He was at Clark.
Oh, that's cool. She went.
How are you?
I'm good, and you?
Good, I never see you anymore. We're on opposite ends of the earth, I think.
I know, we don't have kids in athletics, and I'm
No.
just together, so it's
Right.
not fair
Yes, you were
anymore.
right. She was
Yeah, so how's mom doing?
Good. He's over in Manila.
Oh, okay.
His wife's a teacher.
Oh, really? Okay.
And he is, just.
Yes, so she was there for half a year for there.
Oh.
And then I moved her.
Daggett County.
Uh-huh.
And then he's working on the ranch. They're
Yeah.
on their ranch over there.
Uh-huh.
I see you at the
That's
boys.
awesome.
Yes, I know.
Both in town, you might see
Yeah, I
him
see him.
every
I
once
see
in a
him
while.
at Walmart.
Yeah.
You too, I know.
Yeah,
You have a
Jared,
game?
she's just
Yes.
finishing her associates, so she's doing a.
And JC?
For hygiene.
Uh-huh.
Fourth grade, okay, I didn't remember if you guys
In
were.
school, you know, you just
I know,
apply.
he's looking for-
Right.
No, I didn't.
For athletics.
No, I hadn't.
Yeah, Casper, she liked it.
No, he's growing up.
A lot of work, though.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
mean, I think you have no clue how many hours a day you spend, you know.
I mean, you think about sometimes you go
Oh, I
to
get
before,
that.
go to class, with
Oh,
like
yeah.
a weight lifting.
Well,
or-
yeah,
nice.
some hours, at least 5 or 6 hours a day.
Yeah, we
So
were-
other, because they practice once or twice a day, plus twice a day.
Yeah, which is next.
Yeah, so it's pretty aggressive, but, you know, it gets involved. And it's good. Social peer group, you know, but they go like a month before, but that would be. Yeah, she liked it. So she's a.
Max is the only one to see her, so. But, yeah, so
Just
next,
focus on it.
they last week they won and lost one. So,
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, I think these people just get on and
when they go,
Okay,
Like,
when-
nope. I'm done, yeah, I'm done. Now, how many employees? You're gonna go on. I know my room. Yeah.
I can imagine she's from.
Yeah.
I realize how much,
Yeah.
like, she does a little, she's sort of.
She's very organized. She's very organized. She likes it though, I mean, that's
One of the key that you
yeah.
the first thing to about it.
one more mask, and that's what I have.
Right.
Like these ones are.
Hello. Did you?
Did you get an agenda?
No, but I believe I can pull it up on my Chrome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's cool, I think that.
No, you're
So
good.
much time's gone since like you were teaching and stuff.
Well, exactly, right, I was teaching and then even being up to high school for those
Oh,
7
yeah,
years.
no, we missed you there too. It's like, wow, it's
Do you
just,
need
I
an
don't know
agenda
where
or
that
you
went.
Oh, yes, please.
We get to you.
No, no. Other than the training. So I guess we-
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And that's something you never think about, you know,
I really like it.
I mean, you know, that seemed to hold.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I know it's nice when you know, it's-
1, 2, Lori, and you tied over. Not old. No, not old. We're there. We're not that old. It's good to see you. It's great seeing you. You look great. Thank you. That's awesome. So look at me. He's laughing. What's that?
No, she's buying some new ovens. So.
I've got 3 ovens coming. Yeah. We were talking about
The thing is to fix it, you at least $2,000.
the party has arrived. Don't look at me like you're in trouble.
You're still in line. Star Valley, JC.
Tell anybody because we're not supposed to have that much. Keep quiet.
Yeah, he is. I like him a lot. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. Just trying to freak it out or something.
Sorry, yeah, it's around a week. I was like, I was just, and it was like, we didn't even know there was. We should have a conversation where I'm like, just so you know, this and this and this and this and this are all happening. So take that into consideration. But it's okay. It was going to be with your That's the first thing. Yeah.
We were averaging almost 90 meals overproduced a day. And some of it you have to do, sure. But that's hard to buy a lot. So this was really interesting information. But some of it's not just really not here.
Well, especially when that comes in and you're like, where I usually find
Yeah.
especially they say that nature is so much more diverse.
So this isn't even food actually ready as an herb. So we're starting with this yeah, it's good information.
This is what she would get to me into it.
School board meeting, get a photo saying,
I do, well, I actually yeah, because it's.
There's so many other elements.
Did you?
Yeah, they're free.
How are you?
Did you?
Visitors in here today.
It can.
Yeah.
There's no volume. Yeah. Home run, yay! Did you?
We got quarters at work on these games.
Okay, let's go ahead and get started. I would like to welcome everybody to our regular session of the UNT County School District Number 1 School Board Meeting. So if you want to go ahead and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the first item on our agenda tonight is to adopt the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. The next item on our agenda is our consent agenda items. We have our minutes from our October 4th meeting, our payment of the bills, and then to approve the January board meeting. One thing, I was looking on that one, and I am not seeing the warrants under the payment of the bills.
Madam Chair, members of the board, because of it being November 1st, we didn't have time to get them. We'll have to
Okay.
add them for a December meeting.
Okay.
Which why we'll have a discussion later about board meetings on the first of the month, the first of every month.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that we had everything we needed. Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Is there any discussion?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Next is our presentations. We have recognition of board members.
Madam Chair, members of the board, we do have two board members that have chose not to return, and that's Mr. Cox and Mrs. Torres. And I just wanted to express appreciation to Cassie for 8 years of truly dedicated service. Cassie, even before she was elected, she'd show up at board meetings, and we kind of always wondered why. And the why was because she cared about kids. And she's demonstrated that for 8 years. I think he had 2 stints as chairman of the board. Done an outstanding job. We tried to get her stranded out in the wilds of Wyoming once, returning from a Wyoming School Board meeting, but we did make it home safely, barely. But Cassie, you've been great for our students, great for our staff, and I appreciate personally what you've done for me. So thank you and congratulations for 8 years of service.
That was very nice. I'm not going to go to a huge speech because that's not what I'm all about. But
Sure.
But I do want to thank everybody. I couldn't have done anything that I've done without everybody because we work as a team. And so I've been honored to be part of this district and seeing some of the great things that we've been able to accomplish over the 8 years. We've had a lot of good changes going on, and I just ask that you guys keep it up. Okay, down to our next item for presentations. We have our NAEP scores.
Madam Chair, members of the board, we recently received media report and information about the nation at risk. If you've been watching the news, there's a lot of different interpretations of this particular information. We thought we'd share that with you and give you just a little bit of information specific to Wyoming. And so that is the purpose of our presentation today. As you look here just quick, give you an idea of what NAEP is all about. It's a National Assessment of Educational Progress. It's given every year. Last year we had 3 of our elementaries. I think one of our middle schools also participated in that. And as you think about that, we then go into a large pool. And they give you a state score. They don't give you an individual school score or an individual student score. So it's really a composite of all of that. And as it says here, it's really a statistical sampling of what you have across each state. It's an indicator of Wyoming and how we stack up nationally. Wyoming generally comes in somewhere between 1st and 10th, and this last year I'm going to show you we did very well. Wyoming's 4th and 8th grade students continued to outperform their national average test results in reading as well as mathematics, and the results for Wyoming mirror the trends nationally for public schools, with some of those results dropping a little bit. One of the things to keep in mind, though, when you look at standard error of measure, you're talking about plus or minus 3, and when you look at that, we are within the standard error of measure as far as our progress that we made from one year to the next. So what the NAEP results suggest is that Wyoming's resolve to overcome challenges associated with COVID are working. And not our district then, as I said, 3 of our elementaries and middle school representation in these scores are an indication of that as well. So when you think about a bright spot in Wyoming's 22 results is the strong performance by the state's Hispanic special ed, as well as what you call the free lunch students, those who are experiencing some difficulties or challenges through the crisis of poverty. And those results continue to grow almost at a level much higher than what you're seeing in a lot of states surrounding us, and in a comparison to the national. These student groups continue to outperform peers nationally in 4 and 8 math and reading. And then you can see where Wyoming teachers continue to demonstrate a strong commitment to equity. They provide a high quality education to all students, regardless of their economic status, regardless of whether they have an IEP, etc., or ethnicity. When you look at it carefully, Wyoming continued to hold its ground among states during the 2022 assessments. improving its standard to number 2. We'll show you those results. Massachusetts is the only state that outperformed Wyoming, and it was just even within that standard area if you looked at a plus or minus 3 on our ultimate score. Wyoming consistently is one of the few states in our area that is competitive at a national level like that. Depending on the news source that you watched, one of the news sources, the only reporting that they gave was that Utah's math scores were the only fourth grade math scores to increase across the country. Well, that's correct. However, Wyoming's math scores were significantly higher than Utah's. However, ours didn't necessarily increase. So you can see how they look at numbers and how they begin to build upon that. I really appreciated, and I would echo Assistant Superintendent of Instruction Chad Ayer when he said, "I'm a strong believer in the promise of American public education. I'm proud to see Wyoming lead our nation in so many different ways." So as you look at our NAEP scores, here's overall. We gave you really a 4-year look around that. So you can see in 2015, the Wyoming average, you have 228. And then the national average is 221, and you can see how it consistently moves. When you look, we're at 225. Again, if you're looking at that standard error, you're looking at a plus or minus 3 across there. So if you said, hey, we were 3% higher, then we're very close to that 2015. What that indicates is that on any given day, this is what they would expect those students to get on that particular assessment. So you can see, when you look at our scores, 225, you look as well at the national average at a 216. When you look at 8th grade reading scores, you can see some similar results. Again, Wyoming being higher than, and in some cases significantly higher than the national average as you move across there. 4th grade math scores, again, even more dramatic as far as a difference between the national average and what we're doing. As you look at that 243, and then you can see the national average being at a 235. And then you look at the 8th grade scores, again, fairly significant as you look at the difference in what you're seeing there. Also with the ACT, as it says, Wyoming is among only 6 states that have participation results for 100% of our graduating seniors. Of those, Wyoming ranks number 1 for average composite score. That's a pretty impressive statistic. The percentage of Wyoming graduates who met ACT college readiness benchmarks is above the national average in all 4 indicators, which include English, mathematics, reading, as well as science. Just putting using a little logic here. So if you look at us, premise 1, Wyoming ranks as one of the top achieving states based upon the NAEP 2022 assessment in math and reading in 4th and 8th grade. If you look at a second premise there, Wyoming, or Uintas County School District number 1, taking it to our level, actually scores with a few content and grade level expectation that are maybe outside of that, but not often. We are above the state average in 4, 8, and 10 consistently. Putting those together with a conclusion, I would say that the above premises being factual indicate that Uinta County School District number 1 is achieving and competing at a significantly higher level when you look at a national comparison. We should be very proud of what the state has done, but also in addition to what we have done here in Uinta County School District number 1 as we look at that. That's what I have today for you.
I have a question.
Questions, yes.
Does the size of the classroom on average have anything to do with, because you might go to Colorado or somewhere else and maybe their classroom average is 25 or 30 students, and I don't know what it is for Wyoming, let alone our school district. Do we know those,
They don't necessarily take those into account as they're giving us these NAEP results. However, there is some research there that does indicate that class size does make a difference as far as learning.
How does our school district not rank, but compare in size of the
If we compare ourselves to Utah, we are about 10 students less in each one of our classrooms on average than what you might find, and I'm talking mostly elementary and into middle school, than what you're going to find in Utah. Montana, because I was from Montana. When our teachers started getting close to between 25 and 27, that was just kind of normal for them. Our teachers, we look more like around 20 to 22, and that's kind of that comfort level. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have two questions.
Yes.
I would assume, in looking at all these, that because Wyoming was back to school during COVID, where other districts weren't, I would think that was to our advantage.
I would say that was a contributing factor, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. As well as what we did out after COVID.
Yes.
As we brought them in, really looking at those things that our students needed, trying to determine what those gaps were, and trying to determine what those super, they might call them essential standards that kids needed to know, and then determining where those kids were at and trying to provide those, as we do through our PLC process on a regular basis, so.
I was in a meeting last week, and Superintendent Rigby was there, and we talked a little bit about this, but we didn't have any graphics. At that next meeting, is there a way that we could get the graphics? And
Absolutely. I'll share this with you if that's what you'd like.
Yep.
Yeah, and you're welcome to have the presentation.
be great.
Any other questions?
No, I have a comment, though. One thing I was going to say about our ACTs, I think this year will be interesting to see letting these juniors take it. They've already taken it once. We're covering that cost, and then again in the spring. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I think it'll be interesting to see if we do even better with that. I know my junior appreciated kind of seeing it all and getting the format and the timing and stuff, so it'll be good to watch. I'm glad we did something like that.
Yeah. Thanks. Anything else?
Madam Chair, members of the board, just one comment. To really cut to the chase with this is, I don't know if you do, but I do. I get very disappointed and discouraged when I listen to the national media talk about public education and public schools, that they're failing nationwide. And I think what we can see and we continue to share is that schools in Wyoming and specifically in Uinta County are not failing. Our teachers are doing our students proud, and we should be proud of the efforts of our kids and their students. Doing a great job. We just have room to improve, as we always talk about, but we have high expectations for our kids, high expectations for our staff, and it is impacting what we do every day.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, let's move on to our PLC team reports. So our first report is going to be K-5 from North.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to introduce Principal Gardner from North.
Come on up,
Come on down.
everybody.
Chairman Torres, thank you for your service and for what you've done to help the work in our district move along. We greatly appreciate that. As I think about the PLC process, having been in the classroom for 20 years, thinking about the impact that having this kind of collaboration with a grade level team, how that would have impacted me in a positive manner. So as we are going in there, and it's a mindset for some of us older folks that we go in and everything's done together, the planning's done together, we share kids, everybody's working together as that collaborative team. But then I also look at the impact it's making. As you look at our third grade team, we have 4 or 5 individuals here. You have one individual that's at the end of, getting close to the end of her career. Another 2 individuals that are in the middle of their careers. We have a first-year teacher, and we have a student teacher that is part of that team. So as you think about the impact and the knowledge that collaboration has to help the younger teachers as they're getting into the field, but also some of the things that they're bringing into education as they've just come out of school and they've been to other district. Ms. Farrett, as she's come from a different school district in Wyoming where she did her student teaching, and now into our school district. So at this time, I'll turn it over to our third grade team.
Hello, my name is Molly Pedroza. I'm a student teacher at North for 3rd grade. As I've been a part of the PLC collaboration with my 3rd grade team, I have been able to participate but yet also observe that. I believe that this process that is within our teachers, it helps our grade levels work together, like be on track, making sure that every teacher doesn't feel like they're left out. We constantly are working together to go over our proficiency skills, our CFAs, if we have any questions, if we need support with students in our own classrooms. So as being a student teacher and being able to observe all of that, I feel like this process is awesome, because as I will start my career as a new teacher, hopefully soon, I can see how the work of a group like this works with our grade level team, but also as a whole school.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cherith, Miss Ferret. This is my first year teaching. Can you hear? Yes. So this is my first year teaching, and I'm new to this district. I did my student teaching in Warland, Wyoming with Washakie School District 1, and I got to see the PLC process there as well. And I will tell you, I can attribute a lot of my preparedness as a first-year teacher to that. And then with this district specifically, we had some first-year teacher induction that was amazing. Don't ever get rid of that. It was very helpful. However, we had some more experienced teachers, some second and third year teachers come in and share their first year experience. And they found it to be challenging and difficult. And that was to give us kind of an insight to say, don't give up. First years are hard, and then second years get better, and third years get better than that. However, I have not had to experience that, and a lot of that, most of it, all of it, I can attribute to my team, because they help me with our proficiency skills, with our tests that are coming up, how to teach things. I'm not sure about this concept. Can I talk to you about it? And they're very forthcoming and very willing. Come and seek me out with materials. Without a PLC, I can tell you, I wouldn't be half the teacher I am right now. It has helped me tremendously. So take that into consideration.
Thank you for sharing.
So, Lori Larson. Is that all I have to say? I'm the one that Ms. Gardner was talking about, is almost at the end of her career. I've been in the district for 25 years now, and I came as a more mature person. I didn't start out at 24 or whatever. I raised kids first, and then I came back and joined the ranks of Uintah County School District Number 1. So I look back at when I first came, and we were basically, you were on your own. You were in your classroom, you taught you had your little curriculum, and you basically were in your room and you taught. If you happened to have a teacher that was willing to share, then she would help you out a little bit. But most of the time, you were on your own. And as I have seen the cycle change and the opportunities that we have to meet together, I can honestly say it would have been really nice to have that 25 years ago. The curriculum that we have now is very rigorous. It's very extreme, as most of you know if you have kids in the school system. And so it's really nice to be able to have the opportunity to meet with your team and be able to go over those ideas. And you know what? These computers scare me to death. I'm old. And, they say that saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I know a few of those new tricks, but not many. And so I rely a lot on these young minds that help me. Oh, we'll just do this and this and this. Okay, write it all down, and then I can do it. So it's been a great benefit to see that cycle change from being in your own room, being isolated, to seeing it evolve to meeting together as a team and really planning, and we're all on the same page and being able to help each other out. And I've appreciated seeing that over my experience. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah. 'Cause, 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 'cause,
My name is Tyler Ruby, and I'm a special education teacher at North Elementary, and I work with second and third graders, so I did write down some notes. So, as a special education teacher, one of the great things that I've seen with PLCs is when I come to grade level teams, I'm sitting as a member of that team, and really an equal member of the work that we're doing as we talk about student needs and the work that we are doing. I really appreciate as we go through with my background and things, we have those discussions about the at-risk students and what we can do to best suit and fill their needs as students as we have that conversation. Also within the PLC, a lot of the work that we do, we work on, some people call them 15-day challenges, other people call them unit plans, but part of my responsibility with that, or what I bring to the table, is a discussion with accommodations that can be used with not only IEP students, but also with other students to help them be successful in the core programs that they are teaching with that. Within our PLC, we talk a lot about data, and that data drives the instruction that we're doing. And not only does that data include what we're doing with students that are in the general education population, but also those students that do have an IEP and how we can work with them. It's great also as a special education teacher to sit in on those meetings because we are talking about ideas and strategies that help to incorporate the IEP students into the work that all the other students are doing as well, and that's important. It also helps me as a special education teacher because I really gain a lot of knowledge about the grade level standards that the grade level is doing. And with doing that, I'm able to take that information and write my IEP goals so that they are tied more closely to the standards and also fit in with what the students are doing with their needs with an IEP. That discussion also includes common language and vocabulary that we have, also the learning targets and the success criteria that the grade level is working on. So as I go back and work with my students, I'm able to use those skills as well. And that discussion for helping students so that there's that commonality between the work that they're doing and the work that students that have an IEP are doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brandy Reidenauer. My job is to pretty much sum this up. For the for the PLC, we start our group or our meetings with an agenda that we write down the skills or anything that needs to be addressed. We then talk about kids. So it's my understanding you guys went through the 4 questions of the PLC before, and with those questions, we identify the different needs of the kids, how the curriculum plays a part, how the standard plays a part with that, and then we utilize our proficiency skills and whatnot to meet those needs of kids. The biggest thing that we've seen over the years since we've implemented this is understanding of kids, because before we knew kids had issues, we knew kids had needs, but we didn't know how to address them. And I am not a special ed teacher. I didn't know how to identify those needs on the terminology that was expected. Since the PLC, we've been able to identify those kids. We've been able to pinpoint the specific needs of kids with dyslexia, or the kids that are having those learning disabilities and all of that because of the PLC process. So utilizing this on a weekly basis, knowing our kids at any given moment of the day or any given moment of the time through the standards and the proficiency skills. So it's been an awesome experience for all of us, and our team has really taken it on and really have understanding of what we're doing and why. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait, you guys gotta stay for questions.
Oh, sorry.
There may not be any.
I just have one. I know that, you know, you can't capture 100% of the students. You know, so the question I have is, if you can recall, without any names or anything else, you know, have you experienced in the last year or two where you've lost a student, and lost might be a wrong word, but you know what I mean, where you've just felt like you've like you maybe just didn't, not that you failed, but, and then, so if you could think of individuals or whatever, maybe there isn't any, but how did it motivate you, towards, the other students or new students? Does that questions make sense? What I'm trying to...
Yes. So, do you want me to answer? To answer your question, we take a look at our 15-day challenges and our CFAs and the student data from the year before on a yearly basis, and we make adaptations to our assessments or to the way that we're presenting the information to make sure that we don't hurt those kids like we did the year before or whatever. If there's a kid that didn't understand, we then use our tier 2 time to identify those kids. So I wouldn't say that we're leaving any kid behind. We're definitely meeting those needs, but we're constantly changing the way that we present the curriculum or the way that we assess those students or the way that we interact with that kid.
Thank you.
I'd like to add just a little bit to that. With having all of us be able to have an input has really helped. So like maybe I've tried everything I can think of, that I know about third graders and whatever, and then I say, you guys, I've tried this and this and this and this, and it just is not working. And I have 3 or 4 other minds that, well, have you tried this? Or, just to give you some new insights. And that has been very helpful.
And I guess I would reinforce too that I don't feel like we've left any child behind with this process. Because as Brandy has said, we're constantly looking at student data, we're constantly looking at how the students are doing with the work that is required. And if there's something that needs to be changed, it's changed immediately and it's implemented immediately. So it's a very flexible or fluid process that we go through to make sure all students are where they need to be and grow.
So I got a question real quick. When a child is identified as tier 2, and if they are moving on to 4th grade or you identify them coming into 3rd grade, how do you handle still teaching the tier 2 and tier 1 to the same individual child? You know what I'm saying? To keep them up to what the standards are supposed to be where they're at, plus where they fell into the cracks a little bit behind. So do you teach them or take them to the side? Do you have specials that you take them out of to go with your tier 2? Or how do you handle between your tier 2 and your tier 1
So we
with
have
the
our
child?
tier 1, which is our core, and that time is sacred to the curriculum that
Yes.
we're teaching. We then have time set aside through the day where it's tier 2 time that we meet the needs of the kids based on their assessments and what strategies or skills that they need retaught. We do that during that time. Any kid that doesn't understand, and then we reassess them. Any kid that doesn't understand beyond that is a tier 3 time that we have built in that they get one-on-one intense instruction. So we're making sure that all of those kids are met. Then as they carry over to 4th grade, we have meetings with those teachers and we carry a PLC with them and we talk about those individual kids. These are the things that we're working on. Please carry this forward and so forth to continue with those needs.
So on your tier 3, how often is it some child, and I know it's a real struggle because of special needs, because a lot of times in the past, those children were kind of put into that tier 3 category because of that. How often do we have somebody without special needs falling into that tier 3, or is it very seldom that happens to
We
tier 3?
have a kid that's falling into that tier 3 that isn't already IEP. We're going through the process, the SST process to identify them and see what's happening with that child.
Okay.
And it could, which never used to be a thing before. So
Yeah.
that's where the PLC has really helped us.
And it could be too that maybe it's just this skill that they're
Yes,
struggling
yes,
with.
an individual skill, that's, yeah, so.
Yeah, so it's not the whole math or it's not all reading, maybe it's just the skill. And so with that, we do that piece of it. They may get tier 3 for a little time. Put them in a tier 2 group or in a tier 3 group does not mean they're there the rest of the year because that's kind of fluid. How does that change? Really the tier 3 is building those skills that they may be deficit in from previous grades.
Yes.
And So we try to build those, try to get it so that they can be proficient or at grade level to do the grade level skills.
And then what about like the tier 1 kids? So when tier 2 time and tier 3 time is going on, what are tier 1 kids doing?
So if the tier 1 kids are advanced or on level kids, they go to a different group where they're advanced. They are enriched in their skills. And so we're doing the next skill on the proficiency scale, or we're enhancing and going broader on the concept.
So every kid gets tier 1 and every kid gets tier 2, but tier 2 is specific to maybe the need maybe they didn't understand this part of this concept or this skill. Maybe they didn't understand this. For those kids that are proficient already at that specific concept or skill, that's that enrichment piece, that's that enhancement piece, so they get it. So every kid is getting tier 1, every kid is getting tier 2. Tier 2 just is different depending on student needs.
Tier 2 is specialized into groups. So as we look at our data, we place these students in groups that have the same skill set, okay? So your students, when you're talking about like falling a little bit into the cracks, those students are going to be put together with a teacher who is specifically going to target that skill, right? So you've got your in the reds, okay? We need to work on this skill and bring you back up, okay? Then you've got your yellow, your green, your blue, and you split them into different specified groups that are smaller with our tier 2 time that helps us target that better. And then we reassess and see where they are. So it's important to know that tier 2 is targeted, and you can get some of those interventions that you're talking about because our entire 3rd grade gets tier 2 time.
And that's what I'm guessing. So it goes across classrooms then. So those kids that are tier 2 aren't specific to individual classroom. You grab them and take them out into a separate area. So yeah, so perfect. Okay.
And that's the cool thing, because there may be 1 in this class and 2 in that, none in that class. But so those 4 or 5 kids, they have the same skill deficit or the same skill need, and that is addressed.
And that all the assessments come through your PLC's time and that. So perfect. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions?
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good.
Okay, moving on to our 612 PLC report.
Good evening, Chair, I'm Chad Hamilton, Principal at Horizon. I just was going to quickly review, it's you guys already heard about Horizon's PLC. This is a little bit different. This was something that I do every year. For 20 years as a principal in Wyoming, I've served on accreditation teams every year, usually 1. I just recently had the privilege of serving on the team to do Casper and the 20 County number 1's accreditation. And I just wanted to share with you, there's a whole manual on accreditation, and our district doesn't have to go through this process the way that other districts do, because we follow the HRS framework and all of the work that we're doing there. And the state recognizes that that's a higher set of standards, it's more rigorous. But in my work with that district, I served on, there are 14 standards, 7 listed under governance and leadership, and then the other half listed under instructional programming. And I was on the team that evaluated instructional programming, and we spend a day with the district board and their administrators going over their entire instructional assessment system for the district. And this Casper has 13,000 students, one of the biggest ones in the state, and their entire system. And one thing that was interesting, under curriculum, and this is a standard from the accreditation document that we all have to follow in the state. Learning goals and targets are logically sequenced and are the same or equivalent courses across core content areas. And this is partially what the elementary group is some of the work that they do in their PLCs is ensuring that they're all teaching the same content. We do that at the secondary level too. So that we know if whatever's happening at EHS in Algebra 1 is roughly the same thing that's happening at Horizon in Algebra 1. So that's kind of what that gets at. Under BI, it says teacher teams develop a continuously refined, guaranteed, and viable curriculum in the core content areas. That's your GVC. That's the work that we're starting this year in our district. We've been doing it for a long time, but the HRS Level 3 certification is GVC, Guaranteed Viable Curriculum, and that's the central idea behind it. And as we really looked into that, I can't tell you how they scored or anything, but I can tell you that there was, as we got to visiting the individual schools, over 20 or 30 of them, Casper, became pretty clear they do this work at a building level, but not a district level, and they really struggled with that question, both through it's a state expectation and through the questions and stuff and the feedback they got from the state. So I thought that was interesting. I was able to share all of the positive stuff our district has done with HRS Level 1. I always do, and I expect that, in the months coming that we'll get a lot of questions about some of that work as a model for other districts to help ensure that they have a district-wide GVC. And I just thought that was positive. I mean, we really are getting, the work that we're doing here is recognized at the state level as some really positive, probably ahead of the benchmark, if you would, kind of work. So I just thought I'd share that with you. And I also wanted to thank you guys for approving the retention payments to my staff. Really thought that was a pleasant surprise this week, so appreciate that too.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may, we're going to have one other presentation that's not necessarily on this, but it is a secondary presentation, so I'd like to have Mr. Nate Conrad come up and make his presentation.
Come on up.
And his students too, right? Athletes.
Oh,
come on.
Yes.
Thank you. Madam Chairperson and Board, thank you for giving us this time. I am Nathan Conrad, special ed teacher up at Evanston High School, and also cross-country coach, head coach for the cross-country team. And we came today to kind of give a report on the end of our cross-country season, and then also to express our gratitude and thanks to you and to the board and to the district for the support on our season. So to begin with, this is my second year as the head coach. Ryan Berger and I, we were hired together to change the culture of Evanston cross country about, 12 years ago now. And we worked really hard to establish a new precedence of excellence of what it meant to be a Evanston Red Devil and a cross-country runner for Evanston High School. And one thing that I added to this process is this idea of establishing a term that we've identified as true mental toughness. And there are 5 components that are associated with that. And tonight, one of the reasons why we're here is to exhibit an example to my athletes, but that to show them that this is something that I also believe in and follow, and that is that we operate with unconditional gratitude. And so we are here to thank you for your support. Thank you for the investment that you have made in our athletes and in our students with a great new facility. The track has been already used by these kids and they've loved it. And they are looking forward to getting back on it in the spring as we get ready to run track. Most of these athletes do run track and field with me as well as the distance coach. So that's kind of, so we want to thank you for that and for that support. And we want to thank publicly Ryan Thomas, Bubba O'Neill, and Merle Lester, and Scott Kohler, the administrative team that have helped to support these athletes. So if you'd like to come up, we'd like to report that last weekend the boys and girls cross-country teams both finished second at the state meet for the 3A classification. First time in the girls' history to ever achieve that. The highest before that was, that they ever got was third, and so they exceeded that by one spot. Almost there for first place, and we're going to keep working towards that. The boys also finished second, which was a great accomplishment for them. In addition to that, this is Hiram Baxter, who is holding the trophy for the boys. He received all-state recognition for finishing in the top 10 of the state meet, and so he is recognized as a all-state athlete. And then Eliza Day was also recognized as a all-state athlete by finishing actually 9th at the state event. Derek Parks, who was not in attendance, was another senior runner who also finished in the top 10 and also got that senior or that all-state recognition. But we have here just a portion of our team. We've got my daughter Talia Conrad, Eliza Day, Jocelyn Kaitner, Marley Rennell, who are all part of our girls team and help to run towards that second place finish at ETD, Wyoming, where the state meet was held. And then representing the boys, we have Josh Hilton, Jameson Williams, Jamar McDowell, and Croydon Francis, just a few numbers of our team. But we wanted to just be here and thank you for your support, and we want to recognize these kids for a great season and a great accomplishment in the history of Evanston cross country. Any questions?
Yeah, I heard it was maybe a little dusty at the beginning, following the horse out.
Yeah. A little bit. When we first got there, the wind was blowing really strong, and then all of a sudden it just stopped. And then one of the things that ETD did the last 2 years is they at the start of the race, they lead it out by having a young Indian brave on horse and in full headdress and warrior paint lead them out. It's something pretty spectacular. You can actually find videos of it on WyoPrep, and it's pretty neat to see all these youth, these kids running behind this horse, and it's pretty spectacular.
Thank you for bringing everybody to showcase everything. That's our favorite part of these meetings, so we would love to have everybody come. So thank you so much for sharing.
How many are seniors?
So we have...
Raise your hand.
Right now, we just have the two.
All right.
We do have Derek Parks is a senior, and then there was Jaden Welling, Savannah Woodenfield, let's see, Yari Serta,
James Williams,
Brazen Meacham, Reagan Saras. So we're graduating a few. We've had more in the past on the girls' side. Aubrey is the only one that attended the state event that will be graduating as a senior. And then on the boys' side, we had 3 runners that were seniors that we're looking to replace, so to speak, on next year's team. So we're going to be returning 2 really good, strong teams for next year, and first place is definitely our goal for next year.
Great.
So how many kids do you have out?
This year we had about, by the end of the season, we were at 46.
Awesome.
So we started with about 47, 48. So we only had a few that didn't finish the season. So, and we've been kind of steady at that number for the last 5-6 years. It was right around 40, between 40 and 45 athletes. So.
It's awesome.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Was it fun?
Yes.
See, I'd puke. I wouldn't want to do that. You guys can have all that you want. I'd be grabbing the tail of that horse.
He'll pull you along.
Yeah, pull me along pretty quick. Yeah.
How long is the runs?
So it's a 5K, which is just over 3 miles. So it's just shy of 3.2 miles. So and then they race this. Hiram ran it in 17 minutes and 12 seconds, and got him to a
.02.
pretty good finish. So it's exciting. So we actually do have one more event that we do get to go to. We're actually getting in about just a little over a week. November 12th, we're actually going to be heading to Boise, Idaho to participate in the Nike National Regional Meet, where the state of Wyoming is a part of the Northwest region, which includes Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Alaska, and Hawaii. And athletes from all those states are going to come to Boise, Idaho and race one last time. And if you qualify for the elite event, then you could actually be racing to potentially go to Oregon and race for the national title individually or as a team. We're not quite there at that level to be a team, but that's something that we're working towards to compete at that national level.
So do you compete against same school size classifications
Nope,
at Boise?
it's all together, all
together,
one. So, for instance, Star Valley, Sheridan, a couple of other schools from Wyoming that will be attending that race, and they are in the 4A classification. Wyoming or Star Valley, in fact, actually won the 4A classification this year. We will actually be racing against them. So it's all intermixed. They don't divide it out by class sizes and school sizes.
So how many runners will you have?
We're taking right now 26.
Okay.
So, and rain or snow, we're training them to run outside in the cold. So you may have seen a few out there running. Don't know if we're going to try and tackle that tomorrow in the active snow, but we're trying to get them ready for that event.
Great.
So.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Yes.
fantastic.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll move on to our discussion items. That was a great surprise. Okay, first item on our discussion list is our WSBA Annual Conference and Delegate Assembly that's coming up.
Madam Chair, members of the board, just a quick review of the delegate assembly. We do have four, propositions that are put forward that we'll vote on. Of the four, three will be moved forward with a recommendation for approval. Of those four, one of those is ours. It's the second 24.2 compulsory attendance and early intervention first grade students. So Wyoming School Board already affirms it, which means it moves on. I don't know if you want me to go into great detail since three of the four are going to be affirmed, but let's talk about the fourth one. So 24.1 is BOCES as LEAs to receive funding. Right now, CBARV is a BOCES. It cannot participate to receive funding from the state. So this is really targeted toward them. That a BOCES can be seen as an educational local educational agency, and they can receive funds from the state. This would help bring down their costs. I don't think it's going to bring down their costs, but provide additional revenue, so our portion of that would be less. So I think this is a good, positive thing. I don't understand why they're not considered as an educational agency right now. But anyway, that's positive. 2 is ours. 4 is elimination of corporal punishment in Wyoming schools. I bring this up occasionally. We do have a corporal punishment policy, but our policy says we don't do corporal punishment. So it's kind of interesting it's still on our books. But in the law, corporal punishment is still allowed in Wyoming. So as you look at that, you guys can read them on your own. It's basically does away with the law to allow corporal punishment. I guess there hasn't been an episode of anyone that's received corporal punishment in 10 years. So it's like it's not needed, and why is it still on the book? So that's what that one does. 3 is 24.3 is special education graduation counts. Right now, all of our students count toward our graduation rates, dropout rates. And students that are special needs students that age out at age 21 are considered dropouts in our system. And what this resolution is to have something different for them. So they're not seen as dropouts, and they're recognized differently. We recognize those with certificates of attendance, but they're not diplomas. The state sees them as dropouts. So this is something that I would really like to see happen for those special needs kids. Something that I would encourage that the board supports and vote in favor of it at the delegate assembly. Kind of surprised that Wyoming school boards didn't affirm it, but why they didn't, I don't know. And that's the 4.
Okay.
So to give direction, I believe Mr. Weeder will be voting. You may want to make a thumbs up on 24.3 or a thumbs down.
Does anybody feel strongly against 24.3? I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Good.
Okay. So a thumbs up on that
Yep.
when you vote? Does anybody have any strong feelings against the other three? Okay, well, that should be good then.
It will be interesting with ours. I think this is probably at least the 5th time we've presented this one in a similar manner. We used to look at both ends of the spectrum, the 18-year-olds and the 7-year-olds. We've kind of given up on the 18-year-old issues. Sounds like the state and Wyoming School Boards is going to try to tackle that again. The main focus of this is just to be able to emphasize how important first grade is. Just because you've turned appropriate age during your first grade year shouldn't mean that it's not compulsory. So what this does is if you attend first grade and you turned age 7 during that year, it's compulsory.
Yeah.
And we can hold those accountable that aren't attending. What we've seen is the attendance patterns that are developed in kindergarten, first, and second grade continue to haunt a student if they're not a positive attendance pattern. We do everything we can. This is just a little more leverage in terms of the importance of attending school. Really, it sends a message because those who violate it, the consequence is so minor that at least puts it on the books that we value first grade.
So the only thing that we would run into that we would need, Dan, for you to handle is if somebody asks it to be removed from the consent agenda, well, they have to have 5 people.
We have to have.
Then you would need to just stand up and fight for it.
Right, yep.
So.
Yep.
And we have, 4 hours to discuss it on the way to
Yeah.
Yes.
the delegate assembly, so we'll give you some ammunition.
Yeah, that'd be great.
It's one of those things that I wouldn't care if they manipulated the wording, just as long as they made it compulsory. If they don't like our wording, that's okay, just make it compulsory.
Yep.
Okay. I think that's it for that. Okay, let's move on to the easement adjustments.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I recommend that we table the easement adjustments. I left it on there on purpose, so you know that we're working on it with the city. We're just not ready. So it'll come back in December.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that pertaining to the one that goes to the middle of the property?
Yes.
So that looks like that's already on as an action item, so that would need to be taken off.
It'll be tabled, let's just not vote.
Okay. So the liability insurance renewal.
Mr. Williams is here to talk to you about that.
So, Madam Chair, members of the board, this is just an update. About this time, typically every year, give or take a couple weeks, we get the property renewal. We have not received the property renewal, any numbers from any of that. We have learned that American Alternative, which is the underwriters that we had for years, they're getting out of school property insurance. We currently have Glatfelter. Glatfelter has agreed. They have said that they will continue to honor concealed carry, CKA, through the end of this fiscal year, or this calendar year, excuse me, through December 31st. However, they are saying that they're a little bit skittish on renewing that portion of it. We have asked them, Tegler, who they're kind of our intermediaries, has asked Glatfelter to quote us just property insurance without that. And then we're going into secondary markets. So we've received an application from Apex for CKA. We're also looking at Lloyd's of London as well. I don't know if Apex is going through Lloyd's of London or if it's two different things. We have asked that they have something in place around the 27th of November. That gives us a little bit of time if we have to negotiate those things. Some of the questions that they have, you as a board will need to decide that, and I think you've been briefed on some of those issues. So we need to have something in place at the December board meeting. It's rather typical so that it's ready to go to January 1st. So, do you have any questions? I mean, I can't tell you how much it's going to be. That's.
Do we know if there's any other school districts in the state of Wyoming that support the,
There are
having this problem?
Yes, there are 4 right now that Tegler are working with. Those are Cody, Riverton, I think it's Rock Springs, and Lander? Okay. And I know that Star Valley is also looking at it. And so what Tegler, which is kind of a Wyoming insurance for property insurance, they're looking at, and they're saying, hey, underwriters, there's a market here for Wyoming schools. So we're kind of the lead on that because our policy has been modeled across other school districts. But that's a really, in those 4 districts, it's an important idea. So, okay. Any other questions?
No, I'm good. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, update on the WA lawsuit and coalition
Madam Chair,
participation.
members of the board, just a brief kind of review. There's not a lot that's happened with the coalition in terms of the WA lawsuit. There is a legal decision that is pending. When that's answered, we'll get that out to you. But what I wanted just to review, to hope that everyone kind of understands the reason why we think this is so important to join the coalition and hopefully in the future join this lawsuit, is we just received the Wyoming Cost of Living Index for the second quarter of 2022. Surprise, inflation is high. It's higher than it's been since 1981. Southwest region right now, regional inflation rate is 10.5. I responded to a letter of need to the coalition, and at that time we didn't have this number, and it was 9. So again, it's going up. What that means is all items in state inflation is 10.1% right now. Recalling that our state chose not to provide a cost of living adjustment to our certified and support staff this year. So 10% inflation rate, we got nothing. The other portion of this analysis is the cost of living index. They set basically the average in the state of Wyoming at 100%. Jackson is at 165% of that 100%, and we are at 92%. So in terms of how we compare with Jackson, we don't compare, thank goodness. We're a little below the state average in terms of inflation, but the one that kind of I point out is the inflation for medical, which is our insurance, is at 108%. So in other words, an 8% increase over what the state has, but the state did not provide an increase for insurance this year. They left it flat. Basically, their statement was, well, the state's insurance received a renewal that was less. That means it has to be less than 8%. We received an 8% increase and we had to make a benefit change, and yet there were no new monies for insurance this year, which is ridiculous. It makes no sense. That's really what the coalition is fighting, is for those cost of living adjustments tied to the market. We're not asking for 20%, we're asking for the 8%. There's adjustment because we're not at 100, we're at 92. That's why some of our funding is a little less than other school districts. That's why Jackson's base salary is, I think, 55 now, and ours is 48 because of that index. They get more money than we do, almost $15 million more for just, I think, 100 students more than we have. It's just, that's part of the funding formula. Again, the purpose for this information is just to show that when we start supporting and arguing with our state legislatures, that the ECA is truly adversely affecting what we can do in this district. It's obvious. And yet, the joint the Joint Education Committee voted just recently to include the ECAs, the minimum amount that the law requires, and yet half of those committee members voted against that ECA. So, majority vote, it went to the Appropriations Committee, but a close majority of the Education Committee still does not see the value in an ECA, or a need for an ECA. Again, it just doesn't make sense to me. So, it's easy, I think, to argue and to become pretty serious about this when the evidence is so clear that this is the highest rate of inflation since 1981 in our state, and no ECA. So, one of these days I'm going to come to you and say, we need to join this lawsuit, and the board will have to make a decision based on the information.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really what this review is for.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, down to our public comments. Is there anybody here that would like to make public comment tonight?
That might be where I fall in.
Sure, come on up.
I'm not really public, I'm part of the district. Okay. Good evening, board members and all our guests that we have here.
So
I'm
if you-
Judy Holt.
I was gonna just remind you, if you are speaking during public comment, you have to say your name and your address.
Okay, I'll say my address. No.
Sorry.
Anyway, I'm Trudy Holt, and I teach at the high school, Family and Consumer Science. Also the department head for Career and Technical Ed, which is why I'm here, just because you guys are having a second reading of some things that affect us. So that's my main reason that I'm here. Anyway, my address is 135 Lakeview Drive, Evanston, Wyoming, even though it's really not in Evanston, it's out of town. So what I wanted to address, and maybe this is the right time you can tell me, is it okay to talk about, because you're about your action items?
Yeah, you can definitely share what your thoughts are.
All right, on the student fundraising activities, and I don't know, can you guys hear okay back there? Okay. We kind of talked as a department, and in activities, we're kind of lumped in with coaching. And we're kind of coaches in our CTSO, which stands for Career Technical Student Organizations, because the students in our classes are actually in our clubs, like FFA, FCCLA, and DECA. Those are the three primary ones I'm speaking to here.
What was the second one, Trudy? Sorry.
FFA, FCCLA, and DECA. Okay, and lots of acronyms, just like in education, but FCCLA, Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America, FFA, Future Farmers of America, DECA, I don't know if I know all theirs, but I was in the college one, and it's Delta Epsilon Chi Association, so anyway, just a little bit kind of our background there. So with our CTSOs, we kind of fall under activities, but we're really not extracurricular because it's almost intracurricular because it's tied to all of our classes. So for me, for example, I do FCCLA, and all 200 of my students are part of FCCLA. They might not travel as FCCLA, but they function as part of our organization. And DECA and also FFA are the same way, okay? So we're talking about, if I have 200, okay, in my classes, the other two teachers probably have about that same amount. So some of the things that concern us just a little bit, because we're lumped in there with coaching, is, let's see, number 6 on your IGDF. And it states, fundraising that is linked to a school activity, club, or organization must spend the funds in the school year the funds are raised. Okay? Sometimes if we raise money for whatever, it might be catering from dinner theater, it might be a beef sold from the kids that have produced that through FFA. All of those things, they aren't necessarily spent in that year. we might have a big expenditure coming up the next year. So those things kind of concern us a little bit. I don't know, I know this is talking a lot to say volleyball, basketball, some of the more athletic kinds of things. The other thing that might concern us a little bit has to do with the businesses in our community. Let's see if I can see which one that is. Fundraising events that sell goods produced by companies for profit, this is number 5. Okay, or events that compete unfairly with local businesses are discouraged. Okay, I can speak for like myself and also for Mr. Ellis with FFA. Like, we don't go solicit business. But he gets a lot of welding projects, and he gets a lot of things that come from the community that are needs from people in the community that may go to another business. Most of what I do, if we do fundraising, is like we do in-house things. Like, we've done catering for the wrestling tournament. We've done catering for dinner theater. We've fed 500 to 800 people for dinner theater. All those things, they are part of our curriculum. Those are part of the hands-on things we're teaching our kids, but we're also working with our communities. And our community, we all have advisory councils, so our CTSOs are student-driven. So we don't have a booster president or a booster vice president or those kinds of things. Our officers are the students driving our organizations. So just to be kind of lumped in with this is kind of concerning to us.
So where are your funds housed?
Our funds are housed in activity accounts through the school. None of the cash comes through us or anything like that. Most of what I do, since it's in-house, is transferred from one account to another. Like activities for Evanston Invitational Tournament, we made cinnamon rolls and hospitality food and those things. That's transferred into our account, which essentially is used to buy product to produce the next hands-on thing for my kids.
So John, what's the difference between a booster and these type of organizations?
These right here are student accounts. So basically, it's like the French Club and things like that. You're not having an outside entity in which you need a charter.
Right. We haven't done charters, but I've been on charters, like for, say, volleyball. I was booster.
So that's an outside entity that you kind of have to have a little bit more leeway.
Accountability is what you're working for, maybe?
There's a dance. It's a different dance that needs to be done. Generally speaking, this policy is written to address more of the booster
side of it.
difficulties that happened.
Student activity accounts, there's more control over by the district, and they do roll.
And that's what I'm saying. And so does this even apply to
Does it fall
these
into
organizations where they are?
Well, where it might apply, can I just say, our kids do travel, okay? So some of the other things on fundraising and things like that for, say, nationals, that has come up before, because like I've taken kids to nationals for FCCLA, and it's paid through Bubba's office with activities, okay, with the same criteria as what you're talking here. So we kind of fall under this, but kind of.
So I guess the thing we've addressed before is we were talking about national qualifying events. So a lot of the stuff from the Wyoming High School Activities Association do not fall underneath national qualifying events.
And these do.
And these do, that's what I'm saying. So this is a completely different beast, because we wanted to make sure that kids that do have an event that qualifies for nationals, that they still have the opportunity to go to nationals. So there's organizations out there, and so that's what we try to address. But I don't know, John, if you can address maybe a little bit more on the two different buckets that we've got going on here, between the boosters and the...
Some of the differences that are apparent in that is, one is that the booster clubs are kept separate from in terms of EHS doesn't know the amounts that are in the booster club. We don't give those, the information doesn't go across all the time. Whereas the secretaries and the principals at the high school could look at how much does the DECA club have and things like that. What I think the intent of these policies is war chesting.
Yes.
And so, and what I mean by war chesting is raising money indiscriminately for, for things, events that are in the future.
Extravagant events in the future.
Yeah, and that's the piece on that. So yeah, there is a general thumb rule of, is it reasonable? Is the amount raised reasonable? We don't want it to be either a burden to businesses. We need kind of a sense of, okay, does that make sense that we've got this amount of money? And we're not asking for, a budget for the 5th grade funds at, and the same thing with FCCLA and DECA and other things like that.
So when you were talking about, sorry.
Go ahead.
The funds that were supposed to be spent down every year, doesn't mean you need to spend down to zero.
Right. Because
So,
we can't.
I know you can't, that's what we're saying.
Yeah.
But what we're trying to do is to prevent organizations from stockpiling these large amount of monies for a really big event that's 4 or 5 years down the road, So for you and your organizations, it makes sense that you have a base that you start with, but we don't want that to be gigantic accounts that we're putting a burden on the community,
So my question would be like, I have FFA boys, so what about if they're saving money because they need a new tractor? I mean, you're talking
Yeah, like some of our
$50,000,
items are
$100,000
high
that they have to
dollar
save for.
items, but we're not going, frivolous or whatever, but it's something that has to be
I just don't
kind of
want to limit them in this.
planned for.
Right,
you know?
Mr. Thomas.
Madam Chair, members of the board, this was never meant for student activity funds. But the fundraising portion of it is. We still have to be careful with fundraising if it's a booster club or if it's an activity club. We cannot compete unfairly with our local merchants because we don't collect taxes. We could get into big trouble if we are selling services without following all the rules, I guess. So we have to be careful. That's really what this policy is about, is being sensitive to our community and fundraising. The difference also is these school clubs, organizations, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, the news buzz CTSO.
They're overseen by a principal. They should know that they go to the principal and say, we're going to raise money for a tractor. It's going to take us 5 years. That's different than what we've put we're trying to put the controls on booster clubs where the school district has really nothing to do with those funds. These are school district funds for students only. We can't go in and expend these funds. I can't say, use student activities to do this. It has to be the organization. It actually has to be signed by a student that's a member of that organization. So there's a lot more control over those funds. But the idea that we're concerned about fundraising is across the board for everyone.
And there is fundraising that has to be done. Like if our kids make it to nationals, I make mine sign a contract that says you may have to pay for all of this out of your own pocket because we're not guaranteeing we can do anything. And the things we've done in the past have been more service related, like maybe we had a yard sale or something like that, and whatever came in from that donations, then we put that to our national travel. And then we donated the rest to a shelter or whatever. It's usually a philanthropy hidden thing in there too. One of the things in there too, it says distribute it all equally. I'd like to say that all my students participated equally in those fundraisers, but they don't. That it's like, one year I had, 4 kids that qualified for nationals and 3 out of the 4 went to everything that we had that was fundraising. It was yard sales, it was like cleaning up people's yards, it was, whatever we could think of. We even cleaned some houses for one of the businesses in the community, and then they donated for that. We didn't go solicit that, it was offered to us. But one person only went to one thing out of the 5 or 6 events that we went to. And so all of my officers voted that, they would get a percentage based on what they attended and what they participated in.
That's actually what.
That's the intent of this is. Yeah, that's the intent of our policy.
You don't get the money.
Yeah,
Right.
because so many, the concern is these events that happen every 4 years. You have kids that are involved as a freshman, a sophomore, a junior, and they do all this fundraising and everything, and then their senior year, all of a sudden, they're not involved with it anymore, but they've contributed all the time,
Right.
effort, and energy to go into it. And then there's nothing at the end for it. It's
Right.
just benefiting the few. But what you're talking about is exactly what we were trying to accomplish with this.
Right,
is-
those that put in the work.
Yes,
did
get the-
Well, and
certificate.
also the differentiation comes in with state qualifying events.
Yeah, national.
Your activities or club or whatever it is that you have, these kids are
It's all
qualifying.
kind of tied together.
for nationals.
The classroom, the club, it's all for.
And that has
for
been
us,
part of the
for all.
discussion.
DECA, FFA, and FCCLA are all like that. It's very, it's tied. We might have 20 that travel or whatever, but there's 200 involved sometimes, at least where you can capture them in the classroom.
But we didn't want to exclude those activities that qualify for
National
nationals.
qualifying events.
Well, also, as
Right.
part of Wyoming High School activities, those are paid for by the
Mm-hmm.
district.
Yeah.
If they raise funds for other portions of that trip, that's on them.
Yeah.
Well,
So if you go and you want to go to the theme
Can
park.
I just say that some of those are paid for by the district because both DECA and FFA, the way their events are structured, their state events aren't always at the same time, just one, everybody goes to Casper, everybody goes to Cheyenne. Sometimes like the welding's in Torrington and the ag mechanics is in Cheyenne. And so he has to be, like, Mr. Ellis has to travel 3 times for state things. So, and sometimes.
They're paid for.
It hasn't been though, and we should probably talk to Bubba about that, but.
Yeah, you should, because it's
Yeah.
right there in the policy that.
But it hasn't been, and I'm sure Mr. Ellis would be willing to come in and talk to that.
He's right back there. So I was going to comment on anyway, FFA should be operating in the negative anyway.
Well, we all operate
You're going to teach them to be future farmers of America, you have to be operating.
Real world lessons.
Real world lessons here, so.
Man's gone. But in the past, and we've had some discussion over it, but I've been limited to one culminating event. And it's difficult because it's vet science, it's over in Torrington. I take a suburban load of kids. I drive them, I'm qualified to do it, yes, I am. I know.
Don't say that.
We go over and I take kids that, I have to cover hotels, I have to cover food, and I don't make the kids pay. We work our fannies off all year, or whatever time that comes up to make sure the kids have enough that they're not having to pay out of pocket. But it is a state culminating event. There's other ones, when we hit COVID, there was 4 culminating events. They had them in Casper, there was one clear up, I can't say it was Gillette. It was further up that way. We had them in Torrington, and we had them in Cheyenne and Laramie. And we limited to 2 events that year. I still have to pay for one. So it is difficult. If they're a culminating event and it's on the calendar for the Wyoming High School Athletics Association, I think it should be covered. But I've been having to pay for those.
I do too.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have no opposition from us, so, I mean.
I have your support. Sounds good.
Yeah.
So.
Is there anything else we needed to talk about?
You've been doing great. I was rooting for you.
So it's just unfortunate you guys didn't come ask some questions, giving us some input. We could have clarified.
Well, sometimes it was given to us in a not questionable manner, like, this is the way it is, so,
And the biggest thing is just having a chance to come and talk to you and find out where you guys stand, where we stand, and, where everybody's pushing towards. I think we're on the same goal.
Yeah, and we're concerned about being held to a black and white document when ours isn't black and white.
Well, the thing you have to understand, this was to prevent some of these really big elaborate things. You know, yours is a little different beast than some of the other stuff that was going on. So we understand that, and that was part of the discussion. I mean, we had a big discussion over national qualifying events, and where it's you guys, you were specifically brought up. We specifically talked about your organizations and your classrooms when we went through this. So you weren't
We're not
part of the
phased,
conversation,
right?
trust me.
So one of my concerns would be is we are putting all this in black and white, and 5 years from now, are they going to be, you know, maybe these guys aren't even going to be teaching here anymore, who knows?
But I think
Are we going
I
to,
think we put it black or white, so we don't have to revisit this in 5 years. Right now, it says if you are a Wyoming High School Activities Association. and
well,
you
I'm talking
qualify
about
for a
number
national
like
event-
5 and 6 we're talking about, like number 5 and 6
For
that they were
fundraising?
mentioning, like I said, you know, raising and spending the money
That's
at the
not
same year.
for
That
student
doesn't
activity
include
groups, no.
these student activity groups. Do we need to put that somewhere? Does it insinuate
It's
that it
already
is?
there.
I don't think you need to mess with
I think it is. Because we don't mess with student activities.
Yeah.
Funds. We mess with student activities. But,
You know, and we did discuss this, you know, you guys saving for a tractor over a period of 4 or 5 years is different
Right, than what
than
we
saving
just done.
for a non-qualifying state or national event.
This is
Um,
Well,
Yeah,
and like our
it's
kids,
different.
if we're taking them to nationals, that means they placed in the top in our state. out of
Exactly, they
hundreds of
qualified
kids.
for it.
Not you know, we didn't just sign them up for, I don't know what anybody else is. All I know is our situation.
When my
You
kids
know.
compete, it's not against 25 or 30 other kids, there's thousands. And if you're taking state as an FFA competitor and going on, and it's kind of proven itself, you're good at what you do. Because our state qualifying teams, wherever they're from, go to nationals and they kick Fanny. So, and I'm not saying that we're not good, because I had top 5 kids throughout every year. I've got great livestock judges, horse, ag mechanics. I had an ag mechanics team that was 4th in the state. And they went and competed 1 year, then they graduated. That was Hiram Peterson, so you guys are related to him a little bit. They did a great job. But I got those kids trained up finally as seniors. It takes time and it's tough, but I think we have good qualifying events. You know, it's not like it's just go and have fun. We like to have fun. It's enjoyable for the kids, but when they're there, they're competing and they're tough.
Well, again, I'll just go back to the intent of all these policies, especially was to separate those that are Wyoming high school activities from those that are not. And what it means with that, IGDA, whatever that acronym is about fundraising in general, and still there has to be some controls on that. The idea of rolling over funds, we've never limited the rollover for a student activity account. And we don't need to. I guess if we felt there was a war chest, we need to talk to that individual directly. We typically always have a plan for how those monies will be spent. There are student activity accounts right now that go back years, because that's where we put student activity funds. That's where reunions come out of, these accounts. We don't mess with those. We don't collect the money. They stay separate.
Well, we just wanted to make sure that we were, you know, that.
Good.
Yes.
We'll call.
Please do. And again, I can't imagine any of us, if you qualify, if our kids qualify for a national event, we want to support them.
Absolutely.
And if there is issues with funding, we'll find a way. So we'll talk to those who provide those funds and make sure they have it.
Well, we appreciate you.
Thank you.
You're hearing us out.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
What's he doing? Oh, I thought
I'm like, are you coming up for public comment? That's what are you doing? Huh, anyway.
Your phone, your briefcase.
Okay, any other public comments tonight? Okay, let's go ahead and move on to our action items. Our first item for action is to approve on second reading IGDF, student fundraising activities.
Madam Chair, members of the board, just to have a good reminder of why we're
doing this.
doing this policy. It was never meant to limit, especially those clubs that are linked directly to our academic areas. We want to support those. But at the same time, we need some guidelines about how we raise money in our own community. You guys realize, if there's an issue, they just need to come to us. We can make a change. That's why we have, that's how you govern, through board policy. So I think we're good with these. I don't think there's any reason not to.
Nope.
My recommendation is that you approve this on second.
Yep.
The only thing that I was looking at number 7 about the whole equally distributed between, so it's fundraising for a specific activity, club travel or lodging should be equally distributed between students participating in the fundraiser. I could see where that could, I know the intent behind the wording, but I could see where somebody else may be confused.
Okay. So,
Oh, sorry.
per IRS guidelines,
Okay.
you cannot have participation rules on distribution of club funds.
Okay.
I don't agree with it, but technically, that's the law. The idea is that, so in essence, what they're saying is that, okay, you get the grasshopper in the
Thank you.
ant
Oh, no, that's not what I
student that's been, somebody's just been working their tail off. The idea is the IRS has
That's what I
said
want. Thank you.
that has to be split out even.
That's what it says.
I can get you the rule on that.
I'm going to trust you.
I see this in terms of, there's a difference, and that's been the hard part of this all along. There's a difference between school clubs that are, the sponsor is one of our employees, as compared to booster clubs where we have really no connection. But still in there has to be guidelines in terms of how these funds are spent. Hopefully, they won't have to raise funds now to go to nationals. We're going to pay them. They may want to raise funds so they can go to a park while they're at nationals, which we don't get involved in. At that point, they probably should be distributed equally.
Okay. Just wanted to follow up on that. Okay. So is there a motion regarding IGDF, student fundraising activities?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Down to our approve on second reading, policy KMB, relations with parent organizations.
Madam Chair, we made no changes to that. It basically clarifies the expectation for the charter. So I'm not from first reading, so there's no changes to second reading. I just took the strike-throughs and the bold off. Basically, it tries to keep it as simple as possible, the charter, but make sure they know they need to provide a charter that does these things. Bylaws, truly what we want is the fundraising events, statement of potential revenue, and some internal controls. Some pretty straightforward expectations. So recommend that you approve this at second reading.
Okay, is there a motion to approve on second reading policy KMB, relations with parents organization?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Next action item is to approve on second reading KMBR, our regulation regarding the formation and operation of booster clubs and similar school organizations.
Madam Chair, members of the board, KMBR is a regulation which means that it's really guidelines that we can change without bringing it to the board. But since we made so many significant changes to this one, that's why it was before you last month, and it's the same this month. Really, this is the details in terms of how you operate a booster club. It's specific to a booster club, doesn't have other clubs.
Okay.
Recommend that you approve this as second reading.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve on second reading KMBR, formation and operation of booster clubs and similar school organizations?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. So down to approve our easement adjustments, there is a previous recommendation to table this. So I will entertain a motion to table if somebody wants to.
I am so moved to table the improvement of the easement adjustment.
Okay, second by Jenny. Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, approve our school improvement plans for North and Aspen.
Madam Chair, members of the board, included in your board docs as part of your packet were two school improvement plans, one from North, one from Aspen. If you remember, they were partially meeting schools at our last board meeting. One of the requirements of the state, if they are partially or not meeting schools, is they have to put together a plan of action and a school improvement plan. That has been done, led by the principals with the teachers. Needs assessments have been looked at, information and data has been gathered. Those plans have been put together and presented to you. Today happens to be the day that the state would like to have those plans, so not to put any pressure on the board whatsoever.
Of course.
Just a little bit.
Those plans. However, you also have the opportunity to look through those, to ask any questions that you might have at a later date and begin to build upon those. But initial approval from those is required. We will then post that on the website. Each school will post it on their section of the website, and we will send a copy of that to the state. And it just requires your approval.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the school improvement plans for North and for Aspen Elementaries?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so approval first reading, the IDA temporary virtual education policy.
Madam Chair, members of the board, this policy actually will allow us to go virtual if we have a snow day, a broken water line. This is one of the steps that we have to follow in order to do that. We took a policy from Wyoming school boards and made it ours. So we recommend that you approve this. Second reading will be next month, and then we're good to make up our broken water line day.
So the state did not allow you to, you have to make it up?
They don't recognize act of God.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve on first reading, policy IDA temporary virtual education?
So moved. I love my kids at school.
Okay, awesome.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Last item for action tonight is approve the Red Devil Ranch water.
That's me.
Is that you?
Yeah.
That's me. What was it? I think in September, we were contacted by the Harris Law Office, and they are representing a group who is trying to form a ditch company for the Evanston City Ditch. It's the one that runs from Hilliard through town out towards Yellow Creek. The reason for this is they want to make improvements to the ditch and pipe it through town. I think we're losing too much water in that ditch, and a lot of the ranchers are suffering because of it, especially given the lack of water that we have right now. That's the goal, and so they have this scheduled hearing on September 30th. That was an initial hearing to invite comment on the matter. We received this on October 10th, which is why if you're wondering, hey, wait a minute, that September 30th date is passed. It was passed when we received this. They would like for us to agree to the organization of the irrigation ditch company. And while I think there may be some good reasons for the board to consider that, I don't think that we have enough information yet. And the reason that this is even coming up, I skipped that part, is because we use the water at the Red Devil Ranch for irrigation. And I just talked to Mr. Ellis about that. He really hopes that this works because they didn't have enough water. It was last year when everyone was short on water. They didn't get enough. He hopes that with some improvements there that we'll have some more water. We're not exactly at the end of the ditch, but we're not too high up on the priority list either. I am recommending that the board table this until we can get some more information.
obviously with any ditch company, there are dues to be paid, and I'd like to have a better handle on what those are. Mark Harris has been wonderful in providing information and working with us on that, but I just think that there are some unanswered questions that we need to address before we agree to anything moving forward on this, and so that's why I'm recommending we table that. Any questions?
Mr. Ellis had his hand up.
I was just telling you how much water we had.
Mr. Phillips, is there a deadline to when they? I don't know. That's more information I'd like to try and gather. Mark has been really overwhelmed on this one, as you can imagine. Anytime water is involved, it's, in Wyoming. Yeah, it can be a challenging topic, and so I haven't gotten as much information as I would like before the board moves forward with this.
I mean, like, where'd the funding come from for someone to go in and
Yeah,
put the
Mr.
pipe
Ellis
in there?
mentioned that there may be some federal grants
there's some federal.
involved, and so that may pay for some of the improvements that they
For the
plan
piping?
to. What's that?
For the piping?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know.
Conservation District will help with that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, and so it sounds like they have some independent sources that they're planning on using, but there are still always dues that have to be paid.
Well, yeah, that and, you know, me, I guess I'm a skeptic. I used to live in Philadelphia. What do they really want out of this? I know water conservation is, you know, that's what it's coming under, but is there another underlying reason why, you know, that, yeah, they put the piping and everything else, is it some of that water going to be put somewhere else where, you know, he goes from 0 to, you know, 10 gallons or whatever, you know, does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
No.
The state owns the water, so water rights is owned by the state, and it's just applied to the individual lands. It's not like you can buy and sell water within the state of Wyoming. So the water rights that they would have at the Red Devil Ranch would stay there. But the thing is if you pipe it, you're losing a lot of the groundwater that is seeping through the ditches and in areas. It is most definitely a good thing as long as everything falls in place, because if we pipe it, then we also have the option of gravity and sprinkler systems and everything else that comes down through a pipe system. So if everything goes in place, it's only a positive, and if the funding, so. And if it's reasonable, yeah, go ahead, Mr. Bell.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good.
I put in for a grant this last year from the Wyoming Department of Education. Well, it's through them. It's for $110,000 for a center pivot kit.
Yes.
And we were awarded that.
Yeah.
So we're kind of, for us, it'd be beneficial because we could then irrigate better, and there's going to be other things we put in with it too, but on our end, I think we've worked pretty hard to help make that work for the school part.
If I may, do you know, Jared, is this part of the city's project to provide us some other
Yeah, so-
opportunities?
The city's already been working closely with the Conservation District, and as you might recall from a couple of years ago, we talked about the retainage pond out at Red Devil Ranch, and with that project, getting some play field type areas. And so, as part of that, that would require them to basically pipe
that, yeah.
through the Uinta Meadows area all the way down to that. So there's quite a few different entities involved with this, and so I can see where Mr. Phillips is coming from, especially as they're trying to form this committee, really just, or not even a committee, company, this group really to be able to help control some of this, because as you said, Mr. Peterson, the state owns that water. You have better controls with that as things start moving through that pipe, and that can help. Or as Mr. Ellis and I have talked to the former ditch master, it could become a very political thing as well. So.
Okay.
Do we know how many on the ditch company you're looking at?
I don't know what the numbers are.
Imagine it's most everybody who's out here, I'm sure, is interested in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, that's why I was trying to figure out how many are pulling out of that Evanston ditch on this end. You know, because you get up above it, you're pulling stuff down on Hanson and Barker, you're coming out of Yellow Creek, and pulling out from on that side, out of the Bear River side, taking it that direction. I'm trying to think of how far they can push that up, you know. Does it limit at days? Is that where the cutoff is?
It separates just above where this, just off from, I can't remember the name of the development, but it's just in, east of the Cottonwoods. If you're going down Yellow Creek and look off to the side across from the bus barn, that's where it splits.
Okay.
Paxton has water in through his, and then it comes down, hits the road. At the road, it forks and comes over to our side, and the state lease sits behind us, and it goes over to the Days and the Davis properties after that. And there's also another one, before it goes to the Cottonwoods, it continues over, I think, to the state.
What's interesting that Mr. Ellis and I have discovered is the state hospital actually owns some water rights still out there. And a significant amount of water rights still out there. That,
On what ground?
Those are shares out of Sulphur Creek.
Okay, the shares out of Sulphur Creek, okay. That's what I was gonna say, okay. That makes more
Water rights
sense.
Run out. It's adjudicated water rights, they run out pretty fast.
Yeah.
Last year, we had no water. This year, it was better, much better year. We brought off our best crop we've had yet, but we still had a lot of dry spots. And I talked to the state hospital, they guaranteed us 100 shares that we could use if we needed them.
Oh, nice.
So, I mean, and they're more than willing to help us, because they used to be the ones that ran the state lease behind us. It's part of the Department of Health, it's been turned over to, I can't remember what it was, but they're not in control of it. But we run right next to them, and they used to use those properties.
So if this does not go through, how are you going to use your pivot? Are you gonna have to pump it, and you're gonna have to do a ditch, I mean a pond?
Yep.
You'll have to dig a pond.
We'd have to have, a retention pond of some
Yeah.
sort. And it would have to fall in line to take care of the state lease that's behind us also, because there's still, whoever has that lease still has water rights to it to use.
Yep.
But yeah, we'd have to do something in there, and maybe it would be a deal, at least a suction area that would allow for that to pull when it's, and then we're looking at how much, where we have regulators on the sprinkler heads, all those kind of things that would go into it.
Or you'd have the prettiest center pivot in the world.
Yeah, with no water, just sit out there in the middle.
They happen,
But,
more than you think.
So, and you've contact means of conveyance will have to change
Yeah, we'll have
with the pivot and all that, with the water rights and everything, so, anyway. So, sorry, I've taken up
Oh,
time.
thanks for your input, Dave.
Okay. So is there a motion to table approving this tonight?
So moved.
I want to approve it, but anyway, no.
Second.
We'll table it. We can talk about it later.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. So down to our board roundtable, we have our HRS Summit in San Antonio in January.
Madam Chair, we were able to reserve 8 slots. I think what we talked about is 3 of those would be for members of the board. As soon as possible, I need to identify who that is because we have to get flights. We can do everything without name until we get flights, and we have to have a name. I think Dan mentioned he'd like to go.
Yeah.
I can't go. I know I talked about maybe. but
Can you
I
wait
don't
till
know
after the
I'll be able to
election?
those dates.
So I think it's Joel, me, and Dan.
What's that?
I'm joking.
We can pencil you in.
What?
Nothing.
Yeah.
Joel, you want to go?
I'd like to, let me look at my schedule.
I would like to go too.
Okay.
So Dan, Joel, and David.
After the election, we can see what's available.
Okay.
Joel says he's really nice places to eat now or something.
I know San Antonio well.
Okay. Well, awesome. Okay, just any general comments?
Yeah, I do. I would like to thank Cassie for stepping up and being our board chair this last year. And I would really like to commend her and Superintendent Thomas, how they handled the Mr. Jaquetta situation. I think you took a lot of fire out of that situation and handled it very well, and I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
I will always refer to you as the one. Every vote counts.
Every vote counts. You gotta remember that. Gotta remember that.
No, I'd like to thank Cassie too. I mean, absolutely fabulous job. I mean, you've been under control, you've kept a cool, calm head through some trying times, and I think you've mellowed me out on a few issues that I wanted to battle a little bit over, so, but, thank you.
Great job.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Well, I will miss everyone.
You're welcome to come every month.
Yeah,
I can.
we'll see how much she misses us.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna do with my Tuesday nights at the beginning of the month anymore.
That's right.
I can probably find something though. No, I do want to thank the district, everybody in the district. You guys are just amazing, amazing people. You guys are always doing good things, the right things, and I'm very proud of everything that you guys have accomplished over the 8 years that I've been here, so. And that's it.
Yep.
Anybody have anything else? How about you, Maya?
No, I don't think so.
No? Nothing for today? No. Okay, well, thanks for joining us. Okay, so is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll do that, yeah.
Second.